Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're jumping into some really unique source material. It takes us into a fascinating, maybe challenging world thinking about unseen influences, spiritual views on health, on illness.
Yeah, it's definitely different. Our source is a transcript excerpt from a YouTube video. The title is quite specific. The first dialogue, a sheikh from the Muslim Jinn, speaks about the secrets and hidden aspects of demonic and Zuhari diseases.
Right, from the channel Dialogue with the Muslim Jinn. And the premise is, well, it's right there in the title, isn't it?
Exactly. It's presented as a conversation, a dialogue with someone identifying as a Muslim Jinn.
So our mission today is just to unpack the claims, the insights that are presented only in this specific transcript. We want to understand what this source itself says about things like spiritual diseases, the role of jinn, devils, healing methods, based strictly on the text.
Let's get into it. The source itself, well, it claims the speaker is this sheikh from the Jinn, a Muslim Jinn.
Okay, and straight away it makes a point about how this is happening, right? How the communication works. It says the sheikh is speaking through a woman.
Yes, but, and this is stressed, it's not possession. The source is very clear on that.
It denies possession is happening.
Explicitly, it says possession is forbidden from Muslim jinn. It even compares it to adultery because it involves, violating the human body, seeing private parts, the aura, as they call it.
So if it's not possession, how does the dialogue supposedly happen then? What's the mechanism claimed?
The claim is it's via the woman's Zuharia energy or power. That's the term used. Sometimes it's also described like a microphone.
A microphone. So speaking from a distance.
Apparently, yes. Speaking from far away, out of necessity is what the source states.
And it even gives a location for this jinn. Not just somewhere else, but a specific place.
Which is quite unusual, yeah. It claims the sheikh is physically in Mecca, near Mount Arafat, at a place called a Court of Time. Ushino for both humans and jinn.
A court of time. Wow. Okay. And the purpose? Why speak now?
The stated reason is to bring a message, something beneficial for Muslims, and to clear up what the source sees as, well, a lot of misconceptions.
Okay, that sets the scene for the speaker and the setup. What about the nature of jinn themselves, according to this source? Does it align with sort of standard Islamic beliefs?
Broadly, yes. It mentions jinn are God's creation. They're in the Quran. And crucially, they're not all evil. There are Muslim jinn. That's central here.
And can humans interact with them?
The source says some humans can hear or even see jinn, and that Muslim jinn might help humans.
Might help.
Yes. But there's a very strong condition attached. The sheikh emphasizes that reliance must only be on God. You shouldn't ask jinn for help directly, not even Muslim ones, unless God specifically allows or enables it. That's key.
Got it. Only God. So then the source shifts the spiritual framework onto human health. Is that right?
It does. It makes a pretty big claim that many illnesses, especially the ones that, modern medicine struggles to diagnose easily, actually have spiritual roots.
Which is why people might seek out spiritual healing, like Ruqyah.
Exactly. That's the connection made. And the claims get quite specific. Things like psychological issues, anxiety, depression, even autism, personality disorders. The source attributes these to jinn and devils, the shaitan or iblis.
That's a lot, attributing all that to unseen forces.
And it also brings up something called inherited magic or sorcery, sowing chunya, as another potential cause for some conditions.
Inherited magic. Okay, this seems to build towards a larger conflict picture. Does the source talk about a plan, like a strategy from these devils?
Very much so. It describes this long-term plan, orchestrated by Iblis and his followers, the devils, a plan aimed at misleading humanity.
And it's not static. It changes.
Yes. The sheikh claims it's evolved over centuries, adapting as humans advance, technologically, socially.
And the goal of this plan?
The source puts it quite starkly. To gather all of humanity into one trench or one barn, the hinch, basically, under their control.
How did they do that in the past, according to this jinn? What were the tactics?
Examples given include things like influencing scholars to twist religious texts, promoting polytheism, like sacrificing at shrines for supposed saints, causing political divisions, and even what it calls international colonialism.
Okay, so historical manipulations leading up to modern tactics. This is where it gets even more specific, isn't it?
Absolutely, and potentially very controversial.
Yeah.
A key modern tactic the sheikh talks about involves vaccinations. The team.
Vaccinations. And it connects this to...
It introduces this idea of an Iblis's health organization, Uyukusatin supposedly controlling these vaccinations.
Right, I remember reading that. And what's the alleged effect of these vaccines, according to the source?
The claim in the transcript is that they cause a whole range of diseases. It lists things like diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, autism again, personality disorders,
But it's not just about causing illness, is it? The source goes further.
much further. This is maybe the core of the modern claim. The Sheikh alleges these vaccinations also act as keys or recording or monitoring devices. The word used is razdying,
Res monitoring devices linked to what?
linked supposedly to a person's Zuharia energy, that same energy mentioned for communication, or to their inner world, their astral self. Sasyani is the term used.
So the claim is vaccinations install a kind of spiritual tracking device used by devils.
That's essentially the claim presented in the source, yes. This RASD system allows devils to remotely monitor people, especially those they see as, like, intelligent or a potential threat to their big plan.
And how do they use this monitoring?
By causing illness or psychological problems in those specific people, they can neutralize them. The source actually compares it to how human intelligence agencies track and neutralize threats.
Wow. And it made a specific point linking this RAD and vaccinations to autism, didn't it?
It did. It explicitly claims vaccinations are linked to the rise in autism. The mechanism described as devils interfering with the fetus or the child's mind development.
To what end? Why interfere like that?
The alleged goal is to hinder the child's development
Yeah.
and, crucially, make them unable to receive or benefit from spiritual remedies later on. Again, this is all strictly what the source is putting forward.
Okay. So beyond the vaccination claims, the source also talks about devils undermining spiritual healing itself, like Ruqyah.
Yes, that's another major battlefield, according to this perspective. The Sheikh claims devils actively try to corrupt authentic Ruqyah.
How?
One way mentioned is appearing in dreams to both the patient and the practitioner, the Ruqyah.
Appearing as who?
They might falsely claim to be, say, the Prophet Muhammad or angels, and in these dreams they give very specific instructions that aren't from the Quran.
Like what kind of instructions?
Things like, read this specific verse 416 times, or pray at this exact spot, or use these particular oils, things that sound pious but are outside the core teachings.
And the danger there is...
The source warns this can lead people into a subtle form of shirk, associating partners with God, because they start relying on these potentially deceptive dream messages instead of just God and the established Islamic practice.
I see. Any other ways they undermine Ruqyah?
The source also claims devils can sometimes control the patient or even the Raqi during a session, making them say false things, give wrong diagnoses, all to make people lose faith in Ruqyah altogether.
So, given all this alleged deception and interference, what does the source say is the real way to heal and protect oneself?
The absolute foundation, stressed repeatedly, is that real healing only comes from God. It quotes the Quran, and when I am ill, it is He who cures me.
So, direct reliance on God.
Purely. And the Quran itself is presented as a shifa, a source of healing. Reading the Quran with the intention to heal is described as effective against these spiritual problems.
Did it mention any specific practices besides reading Quran?
Yes, hijama cupping therapy gets a specific mention. It's called half the cure and a way to purify the body.
And there were some very specific instructions about hijama, weren't there?
Extremely specific.
Mm-hmm.
The Sheikh warns that the blood collected during hijama should not just be thrown in the bin or washed down the drain.
Why not?
Because, according to the source, devils can use it somehow. It says the blood should be burned or disposed of carefully elsewhere.
And a warning about the centers, too?
Yeah, a caution that some hijama centers might actually be influenced by devils or sorcerers. So, before going, the advice is to protect yourself. Read Surat al-Baqarah, make specific prayers asking God for protection and healing from the session itself.
Okay. And going back to that RAS system, the monitoring allegedly linked to vaccinations, does the source offer a way to break that?
It claims you can, yes. This RASD apparently can be broken.
How?
It requires a Ruqyah practitioner who relies only on God. No calling on Djinn for help, no angels, just pure reliance on God.
And specific Quranic chapters.
Yes, reading Surat al-Baqarah is mentioned again, and specifically Surat at-Tawbah, which deals with covenants and treaties. Reading these is presented as key to breaking the RASD.
And what happens if it's broken?
The claim is that breaking the RASD essentially transfers the person's case to a divine court. That's the phrasing used.
A divine court. It's a very intricate picture. Near the end, the source makes a point about knowledge, doesn't it? About how to understand all this.
It does. It really emphasizes that Understanding these kinds of unseen, complex matters needs direct experience, not just, reading about it or theorizing.
Like knowing about the sea versus actually seeing it.
Exactly that analogy. The implication is that true understanding of this hidden reality requires some kind of direct, maybe experiential insight. You can't just grasp it intellectually from the outside, according to this view.
And is this conflict, this struggle, seen as static or ongoing?
Definitely ongoing and adaptive. The Sheikh claims that even the Muslim jinn are constantly learning, updating their methods to try and counter the devil's evolving tactics. It's presented as a very active, dynamic spiritual struggle.
So wrapping up this deep dive into this specific source, what are we left with? It paints a picture, a worldview, where unseen forces, devils, specifically are running this incredibly detailed, long-term plan.
Yeah, a plan that the source claims directly impacts our health, our psychology, society itself. Attributing many modern problems, even things like specific diseases or conditions like autism, partly to spiritual causes and these sophisticated tactics, like the alleged rast through vaccines.
And it definitely challenges, conventional ideas about illness and medicine, while pushing strongly for a return to spiritual basics, total reliance on God, using the Quran for healing, specific practices like hijama done in a very particular way.
Absolutely. That reliance on God alone is the constant refrain.
It also makes you think about that point on knowledge, doesn't it? Can you really understand something beyond our senses just by thinking about it? Or is direct experience the only way, as the source suggests?
It's a profound question about how we know things, especially things claimed to be beyond the veil, so to speak.
So here's something provocative for you to think about, based purely on what this source presents. If these unseen forces are, as claimed, constantly adapting their strategies, and if they can supposedly manipulate things like dreams or feelings, how could anyone ever be truly certain they're receiving genuine spiritual guidance versus some kind of incredibly subtle, well-crafted deception, especially when dealing with things fundamentally beyond our normal senses?